There you are.
Yes, I can.
I couldn't hear you, but now I can.
Now I can't hear you. Hello?
You can't hear me?
Nope.
What the hell?
There you go. There you go. Got it.
I didn't do anything. I'm just sitting here.
Welcome to Zoom's fun.
I'm just glad Zoom is keeping track of all the other apps I have open at the same time because they don't care about privacy at all.
It just yeah. That's
I'm not saying that as a criticism that we're using Zoom. I use it all the time. It's just like it's funny that like so many people who are
every other app does it. Like they just do it. It's just it happens to be like Zoom is like the biggest player right now, and everybody's picking on it. Like there's no, it's like every other app has this kind of stuff. I just like now they're surprised as this happens. Like, duh.
It happens when like 11 million people start using it over a weekend because they're all working from home suddenly.
Yeah, I mean, still in my opinion, still the easiest to actually use.
I don't know. For me, I like Hangouts too. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Yeah, the only thing with Zoom is always the video quality is always the best. So
agreed.
Just an easy connection, and we actually in our conference room that we can't use at the moment, just got a new bar for our TV that's like super easy to use. I mean, we love it. Got to use it for a whole 2 months of it.
Yeah, right. Jesus Christ.
We're still recording, by the way.
Oh, what's that?
We're recording this. We're actually recording this.
Not a problem.
So put it out there. Just telling you.
Yeah.
How are you, Joe?
I'm good. I mean, I'm good. Like on most fronts, I'm good. Like my life isn't that different than it was prior to all this. Like, this is my Wednesdays are typically like this. Like I don't go to an office. I don't so my world has not been rocked in that regard. It's great to have my kids around. Like my wife and I are having a lot of fun having the kids around. I feel kind of guilty about that in some ways. Sucks for them. Like our problems are very, we have problems of convenience that aren't really problems, but the kids are gonna miss out on a bunch of stuff if school doesn't come back in. It sucks.
They're not.
My oldest is like finishing up 9th grade. That's a big deal before he goes to the high school. My middle son is finishing up junior high or finishing up grade school, going to junior high.
They're shifting.
Yeah. So all of that like end of your journey kind of stuff that they should be enjoying, like all that goes away. So it sucks for them. And like the existential dread of all of it is certainly not lost on me. It's I think the biggest difference, what I've learned, I think over the past 2 weeks is trying to establish a healthy amount of like news consumption, like not too much and not too little, but like trying to like throttle that in a way where I don't go crazy. How are you doing?
Yeah. Good. That first week was kind of like, what now?
Yeah.
The funny thing is I literally was in South Carolina when this was like having that swing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I came back from it and it was kind of bonkers. Other than that, good. I mean,
good. That's good.
Catch up with our clients. Like it's okay. I mean, we're okay.
Yeah.
Which is, if you watch some of the bureau stuff, it's up. It's like all over the place, right?
It's all over the place.
Somewhere totally like all the spectrum of energy in between, right?
Yep.
Which is what you would expect with any downturn or anything else,
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, so I'm seeing the same thing, and you see like there's like 3 waves to this, right? There's like the initial wave that everybody felt that first week where like all of a sudden all these companies are trying to figure out how to work distributed, and there's a week spent just figuring out like where their employees are, like Comcast trying to figure out how to be Comcast, Apple trying to figure this out. So there was a week where it was just like pretty fraught while all that stuff while the musical chairs was going on. So that was like, I feel across every industry, people felt that. Then there are people where, if your biggest client yesterday was Marriott, like you're in pretty specific duress. If your biggest client was the Metropolitan Museum, if it was travel and tourism, arts and culture, like airlines, like all those things, like there was an immediate like gut punch that a lot of people felt. And then
Yep.
there's other people who, my biggest client is whatever, Netflix. Well, then like you're explosive right now. Like you're going gangbusters. My biggest client is Slack
Or
or
anything in
cybersecurity.
gym equipment, forget it.
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Selling bidets.
Yeah.
Like whatever. Like, so it's weird that like, if this was a massive recessions like hit everybody and everybody takes a hit at once. It's weird that there are industries that are like plummeting and there are industries that are accelerating. And, truly the third wave of this is, how long does this go on? If it goes on for too long and we get into like a massive recession, then, even if you're Netflix, people aren't going to have the money to pay for Netflix. Even if you are,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like there's a version of this that could be that is going to be in the summer, in the fall, whenever that happens, that is going to be more widely felt when and if that happens. So, it's very strange. All of this is very strange. And there's a lot of, like you're saying, you look at somebody like the Bureau, you could have three agencies sitting side by side, and one of them could have been demolished by this. One of them could have had like a rough week and is figuring this whole thing out with a little bit of anxiety. And the other one could have like signed three new statements of work because their client is explosively growing. And this is like gangbusters for them. So it's just very case by case.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's also not like you hit the recessions, like even after 9/11 or a recession, you're going to come out of it. What the cycle looks like, you're going to come out of it, right? It's like, whatever. This is so unpredictable that it's not,
right.
It's environmental and you have no idea.
That's the hardest part, right? Is like the uncertainty. We were watching something last night, Gwen and I, and it wasn't even like that profound. I think it was like Friday Night Lights or something, but we were like watching something and they were talking about just like how dangerous uncertainty is. And that's like what you're feeling, I think, in a lot of cases. Like there's no real precedent for this. Like I was trying to think, only thing I can think of, honestly, that has this kind of effect all at once so widespread is like World War II. Like you have to go back to something like that had a, that profound, and that developed over a couple years and months. This was like all of the same kind of like net effect in days and weeks. So, I agree with you. Like there's no real playbook for what this looks like or how this resolves.
Right. And I think and I've been saying this, talk to a whole bunch of people, it's kind of like you kind of try to, your first thing is to making sure like your company is fine and you look at your expenses and all that, right? Yeah. And then plan for worst case scenario. Then you plan for, all right, well, next few months will look like. And then the end of that is you got to take it day to day. We literally, Bob and I have a call every single day and we're like, all right, today was done. Like this is what happened. Like, all right, another day on the book. So it's a funny feeling. It's just weird. Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I feel like, in talking to, the clients that I'm engaged with right now, it's all right. What does it look like if you don't get another penny from another client right now? Right now, everything stops. Everything, whatever invoices you have out, whatever payments you feel like you're due. Imagine no one pays you. How much runway do you have left? What kind of, is it 2 months of payroll? Is it 3 months of payroll? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 6 months? Like that's scenario one. And that's really like all you can really legitimately plan for, because that is like all variables.
The only scenario.
Yeah. Like then everything.
What's the worst case scenario? What's the worst case scenario that happens? And then the decision of like worst case scenario. And then like the next scenario is like, all right, we're just going to close because it makes no sense.
Right. Exactly. But that's exactly it. That's like the edge of the table, right? So like you can go this far and then you fall off the edge of the table. So what does that look like? That looks like 4 weeks. That looks like 4 months. Like, so everybody's got to figure that out first. And then to your point too, man, like, again, your goal in that is, so let's say you have like whatever, 4 months of runway. Well, the goal is not to spend 4 months driving towards the wall and then crash into it at the end. In that 4 months, if for heaven forbid you don't get another check or whatever, then, you have to start to make decisions around, when do you wind things down? Do you lay people off? Like, how do you pivot? All that. And I think you just don't know how long that runway is going to be or how long that's going to last.
Yeah. Well, you also got to protect your own family, right? Like,
Totally.
as much as you want to protect your employees and do that, like, end of
Right.
the day, it's, your own family that you're like, well, I can't put everything into this because I still got to live.
Oh, exactly, exactly. Yeah, I think and that's like I don't have that kind of transparency with every client, but a lot of them I do. And when we talk about this, they'll say like, I'm good for like, we're good for 6 months. We have this much in savings. Like personally,
Hmm.
I could work here for the next 6 months and not take another penny out of the company, and we'd be
Yep.
fine. And there's other people that
Right.
aren't living like that. There are people that are living more, I don't know, hand to mouth and a little bit more leveraged against the business, and it's a
I
really
think the
scary
best thing
place to be.
the best thing I've heard is David C. Baker talk about this
Mhm.
is like, if you've been in that, like, as an agency, you've been like just relying on that money, so like
Yeah,
cash basis, like just get it in,
yeah,
and you already borrowed, you should definitely not borrow. If you're okay, you can, but probably shouldn't.
no,
You know what I mean?
I agree.
Like, like, he's very particular about it, and he's like, you know what? Some agencies will just die, and that's okay, because then you're not stuck with it. You can do other things.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
funny way of looking at it. It's not really grim. It's just like, here's your options. You can't be driving it fully in nonstop.
Yeah, and I think even if you're not living the worst case scenario, right? Like we have clients, no one's really said anything about pausing projects. Everything seems like it's still going okay. Like I think that there's even if that's the version of this that an agency is experiencing, because
Yeah.
whatever your clients are e-commerce or whatever they are, like you're a little bit
Yep.
more insulated from this in the near term. Something that I've been kind of like talking to people a lot about is, you know, all that is fine. I really would urge everybody though to behave like imagine all your clients just fired you or told you they can't pay you another dime. Would you,
Hmm.
if that were the case, would you do the work you're doing for them still? Is that really their most important and like critical need? Like this
Right.
project you're working on? If it's not, then should you pump the brakes, take a step aside and say, okay, like this is our statement of work. This is the work we're supposed to be doing over here. I get that. But what is really going to ensure that these checks keep coming in is if
Right.
my client stays in business. And what I'm doing over here is not really keeping them in business. Well, we keep them in business if we did this thing over here. And I need
Right.
to get my client's attention and say, hey, I want to help you with this thing over here that's not a part of our current mandate because like I think you need this. But it's self-serving in a way. It's like I just want to like make your company a little bit safer and more secure because in client services, my fortunes are kind of tethered to you. So, I think that that's one of the dangers if you are one of the agencies where you're not getting like rocked by bad news. It's like, that's
Yep.
fine, but maybe put on your bad news hat and imagine you're getting bad news and really look
Hmm.
closely at like, what are you doing for these clients? And if what you're doing is like nice to have, not need to have, if what you're doing is not revenue generating and it's like something more fluffy, like I would work my ass off to get to something that feels more revenue positive and revenue impactful because then you're going to be the last one fired. Like if you're the one driving money in or driving more
Yeah.
money in, or driving a new kind of money in, then you're
And
the
you're gonna
last.
look good, right?
Yeah. But if you're not doing that and you're just like hunkered down, it's like, oh, the best thing I can do is like keep killing it with the work we're doing. And good work's the best business development. We're the most reliable partner. It's like, that's cool. Feels like you're kind of
Yep.
crossing your fingers and hoping for the best there. I just don't know if that's
Yeah.
like the smartest move.
Yeah. So Joe, since we kind of record this, and this is like a crazy idea that I just had, and it is, let's do catch up. What
Yeah.
is it that you do, sir?
All right. So the short version is I help agencies level up business development. I help, client services organizations get better at either attracting, closing, or growing new business or existing revenue. So it's all
And you
sales.
still doing that clutch, right?
Yeah, Clutch, all through Clutch. So Clutch is my consulting company, and I work with, now it's actually kind of interesting. I work not just with web companies. I'm working with an architecture firm. I've started to work with marketing communications.
Oh,
I've worked with
cool.
PR, and it's fun and it's validating that a lot of like what we talk about in client services
Yep.
for like, scrappy web companies that are figuring this stuff out. Architecture firms are playing with the same like set of watercolors. He's been doing it for 80 years. They've been doing it for 90 years. So it's interesting to like get into that world and learn more about how sales and biz dev and marketing happens for them. And it's like, It's not fundamentally different than what, a young industry like digital has been kind of cobbling together for the past 15 years. But it's been fun to, get out of exclusively web and start to work with other flavors of client services, because I like to learn new stuff, and it's been fun to get into that space. So yeah, that's what I'm doing is either helping people get better best practices in place and establish a better process. Or I was just talking to somebody about this before this conversation. What I really love in the work that I do is when I get to know somebody well enough or work with someone long enough, and I can get into like triaging real challenges. Like, after I work with somebody for a while and get to know their business, and, that relationship kind of extends. I have clients that like, help me figure out how to tackle, this proposal, or like our client just said this and we need to figure out how to react to that. Or, this is what's going on right now that we need to respond to. I love getting into the weeds of like real biz dev and not the conceptual biz dev process. So I like when, I do have an opportunity to play with like live ammunition and get involved in like that frontline stuff too. So that's generally what I'm doing.
The nitty gritty.
Yeah.
Hey, you helped us out too, so it's
my pleasure, man.
I actually
and the crew.
Yeah, we actually just rewrote some of the positions, so I'll send that to you a little bit.
Oh, nice.
Because we're kind of channeling. It's funny how this particular thing lets us kind of do that in a strange way, and I think it's needed. So
yeah,
it's been interesting.
Yeah, man.
Since you do biz dev,
yeah.
What do you think people should be doing, especially on the agency side? Lead gen or biz dev is really crazy right now. It's like non-existent. Like you can't. Yeah,
I think that. All right. So I have obviously been talking a lot about this over the past 2 weeks and thinking a lot about this. I don't know. Maybe you could tell me if you think I'm crazy about this or not. But I know, an uptick in the amount of marketing I'm getting from lead gen companies and like people trying to sell me like biz dev services. I don't know if you're seeing that, but I'm seeing a lot of like.
I've been getting that all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that like my main piece of advice is if someone says to you like, this is the playbook for how to do this, or this is how to get through this, just like hang up the phone. Like, don't listen to those people. Like anybody that's telling you like, I have a playbook for how to get through this is so full of shit. It's unbelievable. Like no one has a playbook for this. This is like what we're talking about. This is very uncharted territory. What's going on right now. So, anybody that says to you, like, this is how you get through this, this is the way, like they're probably, like we were talking about, they're probably drawing from, I don't know, like advice that makes sense in a recession or advice that makes sense in some constraints that, we've experienced before and have a little bit more context with. I think that that's dangerously myopic to just how profound this shit is and how very different these circumstances are. So number one, I would say, like, if anybody says to you, like, I have 10 steps to get there, or, these are the 5 life hacks and you won't believe the 4th one, like I would just hang up the phone and not talk to that person anymore. I think that in my mind, I mean, and again, like we are off the edge of the map and we're trying to figure this stuff out. But the advice that I think I've discussed with people the most, that I feel the strongest about, that now has been kind of validated a couple times with other people kind of saying similar things to me, is, again, like, I think you have to look at this as a critical kind of inflection point. And I think there's a lot of freedom in embracing like how uncertain all this is, how topsy-turvy people's thinking is around all of this. Like, I don't think we need to behave like the client services partner we were a month ago. I think we have an opportunity to roll up on our clients in a very different way and, help them in ways that they are desperate to be helped by. Like, so again, like if you have a client that everything's fine, they haven't given us any bad news, feels like things are going well, like I think even in that case, you need to imagine, okay, well, what if they said to us tomorrow, like, all of this is going on hold. We need to figure out cash flow. We're not making enough revenue and we can't work with you again until this gets sorted out. Well, like, get involved in that before it happens. Like, get involved with figuring out new ways to create revenue and stability for your clients, because the closer you get equated to being that partner or getting that stuff done, the more valuable you are long term and the more value you have. So I think, being a good partner and keeping your head down and, not creating a lot of noise, I think a lot of people are drawn to that as the right behavior in all this. Like, I don't want to like create more chaos. I don't want to like, rock the boat. We're kind of like flying under the radar here. And I like this. Like, I don't want to raise a lot of attention around what we're doing for fear that, they might notice us and pause the work. I think I would recommend that people get bold and get creative and try to find ways to create new revenue, new stability for their partners, because we don't know what's next. And the more stability we can create and the more value we can create in the near term, the better for everybody. So I think you have to like kind of throw the old playbook out entirely and start to experiment. You know what I mean? Like, and figure this out. Like, so
I think it's more of it's your typical lead generate or anything that you reach out, right? Yeah. Like, obviously you don't want to be tone deaf.
Right.
But on the other side of it, you still got to do a business and take care of your family and business and your employees. Like, you still have the responsibility of that. So like, you have to be, juggling both. But I mean, at the end, like, as long as you don't sound like terrible ass.
Yeah. I think you can't, right? I agree. I think that there's a period of time where any kind of like lead gen or outbound is going to come across as criminally tone deaf, and you're going to wind up like in a very bad mental place with people. I think that there's a point though where, you also have to just like not succumb to the uncertainty of this, and you have to like kind of soldier on and get some shit done. Like, I think that there's value in like, let's just keep moving forward. I get that like we're all going through this and we're all going through the same thing. And it's weird that like, I'm dealing with the fact that my kids are home full time. So's, the CEO at this company.
So's everybody.
Like, absolutely. Right. So I think there's a new normal that is emerging. And I think we all have to embrace the fact that no one really has their arms around defining what that is. And I think within that, you also have to like, you have to be human and you have to get work done, and you have to balance those two things. And you shouldn't apologize for like, I need to get work done. I need to kind of move this stuff forward. But I also think, if what you're doing is reaching out to people and saying, like, I've seen so many tweets of people complaining about this, like, getting emails saying like, hey, with all this, free time now that you're working from home, blah, 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 blah. And like, people are like, are you kidding me? Like, free time? Like, I have 3 kids under 5 and I'm dealing with this, or I lost my job. I'm not like on vacation. So
free
like,
time, right?
Or like, we're here to be your staff augmentation partner, while like, you better have a better sales pitch than that. And you better have like more value to add than that, because I have the person I work with, her husband works with a large automotive company. And he said the number of like sales pitchy emails from agencies he's received in the past week is like 20x what it was 2 weeks ago. It's all these companies desperately trying to land this new work. So if that is the ocean of noise that you're existing within, then you better have a better approach to outbound business development than some goddamn like email drip campaign that's based on like immediacy and staff augmentation. Like, that's not very valuable. Like, you better have a better angle on this than that. And you better have a better like concept of why you're helpful in all this. And I think too, if you're doing this the right way, you have a healthy mix of like some outbound activities, some nurturing of existing relationships, you do some content marketing, you're playing in a few areas. And I would say that like, to me, you kind of work from the middle out, and the middle is like, where are your most important, critical, key relationships? Are they as sound as they can be? Are you providing as much value as you can? Are you being imaginative and creative about all these other things you can help them do? And are you mindful too, that even if you go to your existing client, you basically say to them like, here, I have like, the silver bullet you need to figure this out. It's so noisy right now. They might not even hear you. Like you could have like the key to all their hopes and dreams and like be waving in front of their face. And they may not perceive that you have that available for them because they don't know where their team is right now. They can't figure out how to do this Zoom meeting they need to do. They're, whatever.
And they
like,
have three kids running around them, right?
totally.
Yeah.
So if they have all that going on, you could have, the cure, and they might not even be able to perceive that you have the cure because there's so much, noisiness on their end of this. So then at the same time, then you have to be mindful of like, all right, then what is the best way to cut through this noise and make this solution clear to them without, just falling on deaf ears or not being heard or whatever. So I think, what I'm encouraging all of my clients to do is like, so, one example is we were talking about, there are some industries that feel this very acutely right away because they are built around like physical spaces with lots of people. You're the NBA or you're, again, a large museum or whatever. I just saw Capacity Interactive in New York. They're like a marketing firm and they work almost exclusively with like arts and culture. They work with, museums and their blog post from last week was something to the effect of like, if you're a museum or if you're a cultural organization, you need to reinvent yourself as a media company today. Like you need to behave like a media company yesterday, because if you can't pivot into being a media company and have your assets available digitally, then you're basically deciding to go out of business or not make revenue for the next X number of months until people can come back into your physical location. So like, pivot, like you need to pivot.
Yeah, I find it pretty amusing because right now you have this empathy and you be like give away your stuff for free and really really push it. It's kind of hilarious because I keep on mentioning Gary Vee, but like this is what he's been like yelling at for 5 years now straight, going, this is all the things you should be doing, right? And all of a sudden everybody wakes up to it and go, oh wait, we're supposed to be doing this,
right? So so imagine like all those conversations, like somebody's had a client for the past 8 years and that client has been dragging their feet to adopt some of these digital strategies that this agency has been like screaming at them or like desperate for them to consider. But there's all this, institutional politics and inertia and fear and all these things that have been prevented. So like now it's like, do I have your attention now? Because like this is the way that you're going to survive this is by embracing this stuff I've been, banging on your door with for the past 5 years. And I think that, again, there's a lot of emotional intelligence that goes into delivering that message the right way and being mindful of like the stress that people are under. But I do like if you're that partner, then, either you have the chops and the skill and creativity and vision to help your client embrace this new normal and pivot into some other model that'll help them stay alive in the near term. And if you do, you need to be like banging that drum and advancing that as far as you can. And if you're not capable of that and you're an order taker and you're not able, like, then what's coming for you next in client services, if that's the role you're in. And, I don't know, like I struggle to figure out how to pour a lot of energy into figuring that out. But I do think like, generally speaking, I try not to use words like opportunity right now, or like, I'm very sensitive to like how many people enrolled in unemployment, how many people have been laid off. Like, so I don't want to have anything I say be perceived as like unaware of that or blind to that. All that said, while all this is happening, like there's an amazing amount of opportunity for your partners to like come out of this a different company or evolve very rapidly into something else. And the brands and the companies that are going to get through to the other side of this successfully are the ones that are going to be able to like adapt and pivot and dial things up and change things around pretty quickly, because it's just incredibly dynamic right now. I don't know. There are businesses obviously that like can kind of stay the course, and there are some business models that make sense today that'll make sense in 2 weeks. That's fine. But I think generally speaking, you look at like Disney, imagine, I tried to do like a crappy cocktail napkin math on how much revenue they would lose closing Disney World down for 3 months. Like, what's the amount of revenue they're going to lose by closing that down? I'd bet they're going to make every penny of that up in Disney Plus by making Frozen 2 available 3 months earlier than it was supposed to be.
Already did.
Right?
It's out there.
That's what I'm saying. So like that move, like 6 months from now, when the streaming wars are over and Disney won, it's going to be because they made Frozen 2 available 3 months earlier than scheduled, and everyone and their mother signed up for Disney Plus over the same weekend to get access to that because kids were driving them nuts. So like, that's a pivot.
If you look at it, all these movies are now coming out. Like the fun part of that is, and being sensitive too, is like, there's going to be industries that we've been begging for to do stuff.
Yeah.
They're doing it now.
Absolutely.
Like there's movie releases. They're straight up going into
direct to digital.
Really there, and that's a release, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Things like this is the good one because we're happen to be just doing stories around that. Is order online pickup in the parking lot.
Yep.
Exploded.
Yep.
Teledog exploded.
Yeah.
So it's the norm. Like all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I don't have to go to say doctor's office, and I can just do it.
Yep.
You know, we had few doctor appointments in the past 2 weeks, and did it right on my thing, and got my prescription, got it done. I don't have to go anywhere. Like all of that changes.
Yeah. All that, and it's you know, it has to. It's a force that you have to respond to now, as opposed to before, when people were digging their heels in and didn't want to do this and didn't want to consider that and all. It's like now you have kind of no choice, and you have to like even my kid's pediatrician, like they were always like, come into the office. That's why we're here. Come into the office. Come into the office. Now it's like, send us a picture, like telemedicine, like they are on board for this. Like 2 months ago, they would have thought you were bonkers to even suggest it. Now it's like, no, this is how this work gets done.
I know somebody that has a friend that she only did training for Teladoc, and before all this happening, she's just like 4 or 5 trainings a day. The other day, the stat for her, she spent 9 hours straight.
Yeah.
Straight.
That's exhausting. Just thinking about that is exhausting.
Well, so here's why also too is so something like Jefferson, right? Jefferson Hospital in Philly. I have them to be in ER for something. We'll tell you later.
Okay.
And we were talking to them, and they're like, yeah, so because they canceled all elective surgeries, all their surgeons are training on Teladoc to do that.
Yeah.
Because they have nothing, you know, that's what they're doing. So it's been interesting. It's just a different world. And it's funny because all of a sudden all this stuff that was like nice to have, or everybody's like, no, this is happening, all of a sudden exploded. The other things is like, you look at Blue Apron and HelloFresh, especially Blue Apron, who almost went under completely as a public company. Their stock just went through the roof because it's like, duh.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of those.
Yeah. And I think the opportunity for most companies, most organizations, is to figure out like, how can we embrace that opportunity and lean into that. It's the whole, like, you hear this at every like cheeseball CMO conference. They talk about how somebody put a digital camera on the desk at Kodak in like the early 90s and said, like, we should be doing this. And Kodak said, no, we're a film company. Like, we're not going to do that. And it's like, all right, in hindsight, maybe Kodak was more of a memory company, and anything related to like capturing these memories should have been their mandate, but they stuck to their guns, and they were a film company, and now they are where they're at. So I think there's a lot of like, you know, forced evolution that's going to occur out of all this. That's going to make, you know, this is the moment to consider all those possibilities. Now, the challenge, I think, for our clients, for, you know, big brands, for those kind of end user clients as well, is as much as they need to imagine things like this and they need to consider alternatives like that. Like, you know, like, somebody works someplace for 5 years, 10 years, 8 years, there's an institutionalization that occurs that kind of puts blinders on like how wide your vision can be, how much you can imagine. You know what I mean? Like, it just happens. Like, you become kind of native in your environment, and you're paying more attention internally. You're not paying as much attention to technology outside. And you get kind of like boxed into the constraints that you exist within. So, you know, an outside partner, like an agency, somebody that's from the third party, can come in and say, listen, have you considered these 15 things that are fairly common over here, but you're not doing, they may not be, because it's not in their, toolkit of things they've been thinking about for the past 5 years. It's not part of their status quo. So like part of it is shaking people out of the limitations of what they can imagine, shaking them out of their context and saying like, man, you need to be thinking about all these other things that you're not thinking about right now. And, no criticism. Of course you're not thinking about it. You haven't been a media company for the past 5 years. You've been, a museum. But I'm here to tell you, like, you can behave like a media company in these ways. If you do these things, we can get you there in, a V1 of this in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever the hell it is. Like, there's a lot of that, like, rousing these people out of their slumber. And also like, okay, like they are roused out of their slumber and they're awake and they don't know what the hell to do because they're just armed with the experience that they've had for the past 10 years. All right, well then you need all of this other experience. You need all of this other stuff to consider. And now let's talk about what you want to do now that you've, that you have a wider view and you can consider more things. To me, that's where people need to be concentrating in the near term and now. And then the other part of it is, the economic slowdown that's happening now and the lingering effect of that is inevitable. And if you're an agency, if you're in client services, then you need to be like building a foundation that's going to be solid enough to weather that storm too, when all this trickle down happens. So, are we selling a variety of services? Are we priced in ways that give us varying opportunities to work with clients? Are we, if you're too rigidly defined by like, oh, we just do like, big, $250,000 engagements and we do projects, like, all right, cool. Like you just gave yourself one chance to survive this. So instead, can you diversify what you're doing? Can you think of new revenue models? Can you think of new services and ways that people can buy things from you to give yourself like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ways to survive this? So you have different, just options. But I think that's not as pressing right now. I think that's going to be in the next 3 to 6 months. But I think if owners are smart, they're thinking about like, all right, in a 3-month window, a 6-month window, whatever that is, when the economy is behaving in ways that I can't anticipate right now. Like, do I have as much flexibility in my business as I need to be able to sell services to different people or sell, our value to people in different ways so that we just have more optionality. We just have more chances to succeed and survive 6 months from now. Instead of like, we do this one thing, we do it this one way. We only do it for these people.
Right.
All right, that's cool. But now you have one way to survive.
Yep. Pretty much. So Joe, before we end this recording fun conversation, my fun last question is, okay. What are you currently obsessed with? This is going to sound trite, I'm afraid, but I am currently obsessed with, me and my family are watching a show on Disney Plus. There's another plug for Disney Plus. It's about an exotic pet veterinary hospital in Florida. And it's just about like true stories of these exotic pets that come in and the veterinarians take care of them. It's like a, semi-documentary, we love it. I call it Death Vet because like 1 in 4 pets that come in don't make it. Like it's brutal. Oh, man. It's brutal. Like you've never seen a body count like this. There are dead animals like stacking up over 8 seasons of this show. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's like gallows humor or the Rinaldis are sick people, but we watch like an episode of this every night and we are loving it. And it's kind of hilarious. We're cracking up about like some of these maniac owners that bring these pets in. It's sad when a pet dies, but like that's how high the stakes are in this show. It's fraught. Like you bring in your guinea pig and you think, Bubba is going to be okay because he has like an ear infection. It's like, it's cancer. Like, it's like, holy shit. Like you never know what's going to happen. So weirdly, that is the thing that I think we're all obsessed with because it's like an escape and it's like, you really never know it's like Game of Thrones and a veterinarian's office. Like you never know what's going to happen. That is funny.
Death
all
vet.
Right. Thanks for doing this, Joe.
My pleasure, man.